Today we're discussing this, the Molus X60 from Zhiyun. If you remember, exactly a year ago, I made a video on their G60 and X100 lights from this lineup, and in that video, I praised their interesting looks and compact design. Well, they've come back with this, a light that's not only smaller, but also offers full color RGB, and honestly, might be the best looking product I've covered on this channel in quite some time. For transparency, you should be aware that Zhiyun is a supporter of this channel, and we do have an ongoing financial relationship, so this is more of a product showcase and less of an official review. But I'm still going to share any criticisms with you and validate their advertised specs using my spectrometer. But seriously, just look at some of these details. This has to be the most visually appealing light on the market. It's gorgeous. All right, let's do an overview of the interface and then tell you some of the numbers. So to power this up, I've got the kit that comes with the included battery, and this is the same as the previous lights if you bought some of them or if you were curious about them. So just clips on. Standard 2-dial interface. The dials are really nice though. The first one, if you press it in over here, it cycles through the different modes. Otherwise, you rotate it to change temperature. It is bicolor, so it can go all the way from 2700 Kelvin to 6500, I think. But if we press it in, we go from CCT to HSI, so you can dial in the hue you like. This is at 1%. Look at this. RGB, if you want to dial in the specific RGB values. And then effects, we'll come back to that in a second. And then music mode. This one, it's picking up my voice and it's trying to go to the beat of my voice. It's like, it's meant that when you play music, it'll, flash along with the music. And then here we have the menu where you can, connect to the app using Bluetooth. It's got the same kind of app as a lot of the competing brands. We can dial in your temperature and stuff like that over Bluetooth. I'll go over the effects with you now. I'll try to keep this strobiness to a minimum, but if you're sensitive to flashing lights, maybe skip ahead a little bit. I'll just tell you the effects. So we've got SOS, which flashes on the Morse frequency, then paparazzi for, flashing strobes. Candle, bad bulb, TV, lightning, CCT flash, CCT pulse, CCT loop, police car, disco, fireworks, hue loop, hue flash, hue pulse, and that's it. Anyway, very easy to control and everything is in there, so that's great. Now, with the rest of the build, we've got a quarter 20 for mounting it on a light stand or whatever, and then this power port here is for powering the light without the battery attached. There's a USB-C and a DC barrel. It comes with the DC adapter in the box. And then for USB-C, you need a minimum of 18 watts power delivery up to a maximum of 60 watts. So as long as you're giving at least 18, you can power this light to some percentage of its output. And it intelligently tells you on the screen what power delivery it's detecting and tells you, what level of output you're going to get with that power delivery. Now I want to go over a couple of the specs and tell you the results that I got when measuring it. So advertised, they have it as 2200 lux at 1 meter. I got 2180, so pretty darn close. I measured it at 5600 Kelvin. I think obviously as you go to the extremes on either end of the bicolor, your output goes down. But if you're operating right in the middle of daylight, I got 2180, that's a pass if they're advertising 2200, obviously. 2200 lux at 1 meter is like 20 times the output of an Aperture MC and like 5 times the output of a MC Pro. And while it is thicker, the face of it isn't actually that much bigger than those lights. So it's pretty impressive what they fit into such a compact little light here. Now for SSI, for color quality, when set to daylight, I got a 75 SSI and I got 86 when set to tungsten. And then the other color quality indexes came in around 95 or 96, which are as advertised. Like I said, the bicolor range goes from 2700 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin. And when I measured those color quality things, I was getting within about 50 Kelvin. The tungsten was a little bit further away, was maybe closer to 100 Kelvin off. And the daylight was within 50 Kelvin, which is excellent. Most of the lights I test are usually maybe more than that, but if you're within 50 Kelvin, that's about as close as you can expect to get. I did notice that the light was coming in a little bit magenta. Now, on the previous lights of this series, I complained that they were quite a bit magenta, like it was requiring like a 1.5 green to fix. These lights were coming in more around half to 2/3 green to fix, which means that they improved it over the previous generation, which is great. And it's important to know that LEDs often green up over time. So if you measure right out of the box, like first measurement says you need about a half green, that's probably okay, because then you'll get closer to a perfect 0 over time. The 1.5 green that I was getting on some other lights, that's a bit much. However, a little bit of a criticism would be that considering it's a full color light, I do wish that they had a green magenta adjustment. On that CCT screen, you've got temperature and output. There's an empty spot there. I wish for green magenta. One of the things I like about all of my full color panels is that I can adjust the green magenta. The other minor criticism that I have, but it actually comes with a small benefit, is that the power curve isn't linear. So for example, say that you were at 100% output and you measured that, and then you went to 50% output and you measured that, and 25% and so on. It doesn't scale down as you would expect. 50% isn't half the output of 100%, and 25 isn't a quarter. It has a significant jump in the beginning, which you saw when I turn it on even at 0.1%, and then it curves off so that it's kind of a diminishing intensity as you get close to 100%. I think the advantage of this is that when you are at those really, really low percentages, you don't get any flickering. Sometimes when the lights, especially when you're mixing color or color temperature, when you have such minor output, the lights either shift dramatically where your 3200 goes from, instead of being 3200, when you go down to 1%, it's like super orange. So none of that happens. The color temperature is consistent throughout the output range from 1% to 100, and there is no flickering at any point. The only consequence of that is that it is not a linear output curve. At 100% output though, using the included battery at full charge, you'll get about 50 minutes of runtime. This is a 57.7 watt-hour battery, so just under the 60 watts required, so you'll get just under an hour of runtime. They use a unique connector for connecting to the light, but the battery itself has a USB-C port on top. You could run a cord, I guess, if you wanted, from the battery to the light, if you wanted to sort of tether it or maybe take the weight off the light. But you can also use your own configuration. You can actually run this off of your computer, which is pretty sweet. As long as your USB-C ports on your computer are outputting at least 18 watts, say you were like, you know, on your laptop doing some kind of remote stream setup or whatever, or like conference call, and you had your laptop on mains power, you could connect this via USB and like put it just above your laptop and you'd have a little light with you. It's kind of cool. And it would run right off your computer. But anyway, the USB-C port on the battery is both input and output. So you can charge the battery from that port, but you can also charge other things from that port as well. And even if you have it connected to the light and powering the light, this port is still active. So you could also charge your phone or power some other minor USB-C device from that port while powering the light. Obviously that's going to affect your runtime, but it's pretty cool how it's versatile like that. And you can even charge the battery through this port while it's connected to the light, and even if you have the light at 100%. So you can keep juicing the battery while it's juicing the light, which is kind of cool. Basically everything I threw at this battery thinking, well, can it operate in this configuration? It did, which is kind of cool. But you don't need the battery. You can power the light using the mains DC that comes with it. You can power with your own USB-C battery bank. You know, do whatever you want. I also like that it can sit on the desk in multiple ways, because I often use these for little product, you know, like lighting products with like RGB and stuff like that, because it's, you know, got wide bases. You can do it in all kinds of ways. But even if you have the battery connected, it still sits well in the different orientations, which is great. Now there is an included hyperreflector that comes with this sort of dome diffuser on it. And there's a few different beam angles. So I'll show you some images of the different beam angles right now. So if you just have a bare chip, it operates very similarly to something like an Aperture MC, where just sort of a flat panel where you're getting, you know, almost like a 180-degree beam angle to it. Obviously with a lot more output though, because it's a COB. But you can increase the output even more by putting this hyperreflector on it, which I've got no real complaints about. It goes on easy. There's a little release spring for it there. I think it looks kind of cool with it on. Almost looks like a vintage camera or something. But with this on, it is a much more narrow now beam angle, and the output goes from like that 2000 lux up to like 8000 lux. So this is hyper focused. You can also put the dome on here, you know, like this. It's just a diffused kind of orb in front of the light. There's a Bowens adapter that Zhiyun has for this, where it converts it from this to a standard Bowens mount. And inside that adapter, there's also sort of like a mini reflector built into it to sort of better control the beam that's coming out of here and hit the modifiers better. But it's cool when you look inside of it, you can see that it's like machined well to really fit nicely with this chip. Okay, you know what? Let's set up that light and take a look at it, and then we can discuss fan noise because I'll have it operating. Okay, there. So I've got the light set up about 2 meters away. I don't know, maybe close to 7 feet. And I have it running at about 40% output, and that's behind one of the parabolic softboxes that Zhiyun makes, but they're pretty standard. There's an inner piece of diffusion to break up the direct light, and then the outer piece. So it's running through 2 pieces of fabric. again at about 40%, and I turned off my 600 watt light that normally hits me, mind you, further away. And this is what it looks like. And I would say it looks pretty good. I could probably even turn it down a little bit more. I think I'm a little bit brighter than I was in the previous shot, and maybe just a pinch more magenta. Let's turn off all the lights so you can see how it looks with just sort of bare bones key, but also we can listen for the fan in that case too. Now I'm only being lit by that light. And I can hear it, but just barely. Okay, so now I've got it within arm's reach. My microphone is right here and the light is right there, and it's at 100% output, and the fan is going. At the lower output, when I had it at 40%, the fan would come on and off as it needed. At 100%, it seems to just be going consistently. This is what it sounds like. So it's not exactly quiet. If anything, that's the biggest con you could take away from it, is that it has a small fan, and when those small fans hit their max speed, they go burr. Anyway, that's about it. I thought the previous lights were pretty great, but I did wish they had RGB, so now I'm thrilled. And it's incredible to think that a light this small can output 60 watts, be used as a key light in a small studio, has full RGB, looks amazing, and has 3 different powering options. All I can say is, well done. All right, I'm done.